Okay, let's dive in. Imagine this. You're carrying a phone, right?
Right.
And it's secretly taking screenshots of everything you do.
But not for you.
Exactly, not for you,
Yeah.
for the authorities. Or, picture this. Suddenly facing a mandatory new cost, maybe hundreds of rays, just to get your driver's license, which is already pricey.
Yeah, and sparking some, let's say, strong reactions.
That's right. So we're jumping into a really interesting set of source materials today. We've got this Portuguese video commentary plus the transcript and notes you shared. And our mission here in this deep dive is basically to be your guides. We're going to pull out the key insights, the surprising details, and the unique viewpoints in this material.
Yeah, we'll try to get you straight to the heart of what it's saying quickly and thoroughly.
So based on this source, we've got three main areas bubbling up. First, a look at some, well, pretty intense surveillance tech from a smuggled phone.
Then there's this new hurdle for drivers right here in Brazil.
And finally, some quite pointed commentary that was in the source about Brazilian politics and the judiciary.
Let's start with that phone then. The source gave us details about a North Korean phone smuggled out, journalists got access. A rare peek, really.
What jumped out at me straight away was just the level of automated oversight. The material says this phone automatically snaps screenshots.
Of whatever the user is doing, typing, viewing.
Yeah, apparently like every 5 minutes or so.
Wait, every 5 minutes? That's a lot.
It is. And here's the kicker. According to the source, the user, they can't see these screenshots, can't access them, can't delete them.
Nothing. They just pile up, saved automatically, and only the authorities can, pull them later.
So it gives them a continuous visual log of pretty much everything happening on that screen. Quite a window.
And the control isn't just watching, it's actively intervening. The source explains how the phone actually changes words as you type.
Oh yeah, like if you type oppa, which the source notes means older brother or is slang for boyfriend.
It just switches it, poof, to comrade.
Right. And another example they gave was typing South Korea.
Automatically becomes puppet state. That's the North's official term for the South, apparently.
And the source mentioned users even get warning messages if they try using unapproved words.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Using the tech to police language itself, not just actions.
And these specific phones, the source added, they apparently don't even have internet access. So further isolation.
Limited connection.
But interestingly, the source also mentioned efforts to kind of push back against this control.
Ah, right. The smuggled South Korean TV shows.
Yeah, often on things like USB drives, the commentator mentioned. Just trying to show people a different world, maybe undermine the regime a bit.
So you've got this really tight tech control, but also these low-tech efforts to bypass it. And the commentator in the source material had a pretty distinct take on the phone itself.
They definitely did. They immediately brought it home, suggesting Brazil's First Lady Janja and President Lula might see this and think,
hey, great idea for monitoring Brazilians.
Exactly. Implying, with heavy sarcasm that they'd want to distribute these phones for free.
Meaning, funded by us, the taxpayers. That specific jab was straight from the commentator in the material.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit, but stay in Brazil. The source material also flagged a pretty big change for anyone trying to get a driver's license.
Yeah, this came from reporting within the source about a vote in the Chamber of Deputies. The main thing is mandatory drug testing.
For everyone getting a new license in categories A and B, that's motorcycles and cars.
Which is new, right? Because previously that was mostly for the professional categories like C, D, E, truck drivers, bus drivers.
Exactly. And the material immediately pointed out the added cost.
Yeah, it estimates this adds, $110 to $250 onto the total bill for getting a license?
Which, as the source notes, is already not exactly cheap here.
No kidding. And the commentator's reaction to that instant sarcasm.
Oh, yeah. Something like, oh, good, it's already so affordable, right?
Oh,
just another $250 for the suckers to cough up.
Sarcastically suggesting, the people must want this because their representatives voted for it. Again, that specific flavor of commentary is from the source itself.
Now, to be fair, the news context included in the source did mention this might be part of a bigger project, potentially subsidies for lower-income drivers down the line.
And maybe funding the tests through traffic fines, so other moving parts potentially.
Right. And the tests themselves, the source listed what they check for. Amphetamines.
Cannabinoids, so marijuana, opiates, cocaine, and
Mezendol.
Mezendol. That one's a bit specific.
Yeah, it's a weight loss drug. And the commentator actually found this kind of funny, or absurd, rather.
Pointing out you could fail your driving test because you're trying to lose weight.
Pretty much. Taking a prescribed medication to manage your weight could potentially stop you getting a license. It definitely highlights an odd one on the list.
And this approved text, the source says, now heads to President Lula for sanction. Okay. Which kind of leads us into the third big theme from the source material, this broader critique of the Brazilian government and judiciary, again, presented as viewpoints within that commentary.
One specific thing raised was President Lula's stated plan, mentioned in the material, to invest in infrastructure in Angola.
Right, things like highways, railways, airports over there.
And this drew criticism from both the commentator and Alexandra Garcia, who was featured in the source. They questioned the logic, basically.
Investing heavily abroad in Angola when Brazil itself has, well, huge infrastructure needs. Garcia even shared this anecdote.
Yeah, about an engineer in Angola mentioning needing to leave something aside in deals there.
Exactly, and the commentator jumped on that, connecting it directly to implied corruption.
Suggesting money going to Angola for projects might somehow loop back to Brazil as kickbacks. It's important to stress these are the specific views and implications presented in the source material we reviewed.
Absolutely. The material also included a pretty significant clip from STF Justice Luiz Fux. He was laying out some principles about the judiciary.
Right, he made a point of saying judges aren't elected officials.
And that Brazil doesn't have a government of judges, was his phrase.
He also stressed that the judiciary shouldn't really wade into purely political stuff where it doesn't have the institutional capacity.
But he also kind of acknowledged that courts often get asked to rule on tough issues precisely because the politicians, the other branches, haven't sorted them out.
Interesting point. He also talked about the Supreme Court's legitimacy. Said it depends on decisions aligning with the constitutional sentiment of the people.
Not just, whatever public opinion is blowing in the wind that week.
And he warned that overstepping what people call judicial activism could actually damage the court's credibility. So those were Fux's main points in the clip, as shown in the source.
But the commentator's reaction to that speech, wow, it was not subtle.
Heavily sarcastic, yeah. The commentary basically implied a huge gap between Fux's words and, well, their perception of how the STF actually operates.
They were openly questioning his motives, like, why the speech now? Maybe because of talk about laws limiting judicial power.
Or even trying to send a signal to, like the U.S. or other international watchers, showing restraint.
Yeah, pure speculation on the commentator's part. And then there was that very direct, almost mocking reference to Justice Alexandre de Moraes using the nickname Zendown.
Suggesting he might be the one not quite following Fux's principles. Again, that strong critique, that specific reference, it's all straight from the commentator in the source.
Right. And they wrapped it up with more sarcasm, calling Fux's speech beautiful, but basically asking, is it just empty words?
So let's pull these threads together. We've seen this glimpse of some, frankly, chilling surveillance tech far away.
Then examined a very real new cost and requirement for drivers right here in Brazil.
And heard some incredibly direct, critical commentary from within the source about how things are run, the judiciary, potential corruption.
And looking closely at sources like this, sifting through the reporting and the commentary, it really shows you how you uncover these specifics, understand different viewpoints.
And see links between things that might seem unrelated, tech control, policy costs, critiques of power that connect through themes of authority, citizen burden, scrutiny.
It definitely makes you think. You see how information is controlled in one context, how new burdens are added in another, how powerful figures are publicly dissected.
It makes you wonder, how does the way we all encounter and process this stuff, this information, ultimately shape our own understanding, our sense of freedom or maybe restriction?
And how do you figure out that constitutional sentiment Justice Fux mentioned amidst all the different takes and, frankly, all the noise out there? Something to chew on.